Okay, so are you ready to try and figure out Leos? We're going deep into what makes them tick today, those lions.
Yeah.
But this time, we've got a really different point of view for this deep dive.
Oh.
The material we're working from comes from a Latin American podcast episode,
Okay.
which means we're going to get some takes on Leos that you won't find in like your typical astrology guides.
Yeah, it's really interesting how different cultures kind of view the signs differently, right?
Right.
Like this podcast, it really digs into like the Latin American perspective on pretty much all things Leo.
Yeah,
Love, friendships, even like how they are in the workplace.
I love that.
Yeah.
So let's start with love.
Okay.
This podcast just paints such a vivid picture of what it's like to be loved by a Leo. It's not just falling in love.
Right.
It's like this full-on leap, like fireworks, grand gestures.
Yeah, and that makes sense when you think about Leo's ruling planet, the sun, right? It's like, just like the sun kind of radiates warmth and commands attention. A Leo in love wants to be adored, admired.
Yeah.
They want to feel like their partner is like their biggest fan.
Totally. And it's not just about empty flattery.
Right.
This podcast had this amazing example.
Okay.
Apparently, Leo in Argentina once surprised his girlfriend by hiring a whole tango troupe
Oh, wow.
to perform for her
Oh, my gosh.
in the middle of Plaza de Mayo.
That's so Leo.
Right.
That they need to just make everything feel so special, so dramatic.
Yeah.
It's like they see love as this grand performance, and of course they want to play the leading role.
Totally. I can see that.
Yeah.
But what happens when the curtain closes? Like, what are the day-to-day challenges of actually dating a Leo?
Well, imagine living under a constant spotlight.
Uh,
That's what it can feel like to be with a Leo,
okay.
That need for attention can get intense.
Yeah.
They want to be the center of your world, and they can get bruised so easily if they feel ignored.
Yeah. That makes sense. I guess you can't have all that sunshine without a little heat.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that this intensity, it comes from this desire to be seen, appreciated, loved for who they are. It's not just about ego.
Right.
Well, not entirely.
Yep.
It's about validation, They need this constant reassurance that they're special, that they're worthy of your love.
So how do you navigate that without kind of losing yourself?
The key is, I think, finding this balance between feeding their ego in a healthy way,
Right.
and setting really clear boundaries.
Okay.
It's about making them feel loved and admired, but without sacrificing your own needs.
Right.
And clear communication is crucial here. Let them know what you need, what you're comfortable with, and what you're not.
The podcast was really specific about the things that Leos just can't stand.
Like what?
Being ignored. Like, that was at the top of the list.
Which makes sense when you think about that solar nature.
Right.
They're like the sun, they need to be acknowledged to feel like their presence is felt. Feeling unseen or unimportant, that's a major blow to their ego.
And criticism, especially if it's harsh, it can be like throwing water on their fire.
Exactly. Remember, they have this deep-seated need
Yeah.
to be seen as strong and capable.
Mm-hmm.
So any critique that chips away at that, it's going to be met with resistance.
The podcast had some interesting stuff about how to deliver criticism effectively, though.
Like what?
It's not about like sugarcoating it.
Right.
It's about framing it in a way that doesn't threaten their pride.
Yes. Focus on the positive,
Yeah.
highlight their strengths, and then gently suggest areas for improvement. And remember, timing is everything.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah. Choose your moment wisely. Don't try to have a serious conversation when they're in the midst of their grand performance.
That makes me think of that tango surprise.
Aww.
Can you imagine trying to critique a Leo's outfit while they're like basking in the applause of a flash mob?
Probably not a good time.
Right.
It's about reading their energy and finding those moments when they're receptive.
Okay, we've talked about the sunshine, we've talked about the heat, but what about when the storms roll in? How does a Leo handle anger?
Well, think about like a volcano.
Oh,
That's Leo anger.
okay.
Explosive, intense, fueled by their fiery nature. They don't hold back. They let you know
Yeah.
they're upset.
The podcast used some pretty strong language.
Like what?
Dramatic, passionate, even theatrical at times. It's like their anger is part of the performance.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
They don't do passive-aggressive. They either go big or go home.
Okay.
And here's the thing. The podcast really emphasized that ignoring a Leo's anger
Oh,
is like the worst thing you can do.
really?
Yeah, it's like pouring gasoline on a fire.
Why? Because it makes them feel disrespected.
Yeah.
Like their feelings aren't being taken seriously.
Exactly. Even when they're wrong, even when they're overreacting, Leos need to feel like their emotions are valid.
Okay.
Acknowledge their anger, even if you don't agree with it. Let them know you share them, you see them, and you understand why they're upset.
Okay, so what's the best way to kind of calm down a raging lion?
The podcast had some really good advice.
Good.
First, don't poke the bear.
Right.
Don't engage in a pride battle with a Leo.
Huh.
You'll lose every time.
Okay.
Instead, appeal to their sense of fairness and logic.
Okay.
Once they've kind of had a chance to vent,
Right.
calmly explain your side of the story,
Okay.
but do it with respect and empathy.
It's about meeting their intensity with calmness and understanding.
Exactly. Don't try to extinguish their fire, just try to redirect it.
Okay. I'm starting to get a sense of what it takes to kind of dance with this fire.
Yeah.
But before we jump into compatibility,
Okay.
I have to ask, what's the best part about loving a Leo?
Oh, that's easy. The sheer passion.
Oh.
They love with their whole hearts.
Mm-hmm.
They're generous. They're affectionate. And they make you feel like you're the only person in the world.
Oh, that's so romantic.
Yeah. And let's not forget about the loyalty.
Oh, yeah.
The podcast emphasized how fiercely protective they are of their loved ones.
Yeah.
Mess with someone a Leo loves, and you'll see that lion's roar
Oh, yeah.
in full force.
And let's not forget the fun factor.
Oh, yeah.
The podcast described Leos as the life of the party.
Yeah.
Always up for an adventure
Yeah.
and always ready to make you laugh.
They have this infectious enthusiasm that's just so hard to resist.
Totally.
They see the world as this giant playground, and they want you to come play with them.
So it's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
The passion, the drama, the laughter, the loyalty.
That's the beauty of loving a Leo.
Yeah.
It's a wild ride, but it's never boring.
All right. Well, now I'm really curious to see who can handle this fiery tango.
Right.
Let's move on to compatibility and see which signs are best suited to dance with the lion.
All right. Let's see who can tame or at least complement that fiery heart.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So we're about to play matchmaker astrology style. Our Latin American podcast source. They actually laid out some ideal pairings for Leo, as well as some relationships that are probably best avoided.
Right.
So let's start with the good news. Who are the signs that can really make a Leo's heart roar with happiness?
Well, it's interesting because this podcast goes beyond just listing sun signs.
Okay.
It actually explains why certain pairings work
Oh,
based on elemental compatibility.
okay.
For example, fire signs like Aries and Sagittarius are often really drawn to Leo's passionate energy.
Right. It's like that saying, fire needs air to burn brightly. And both of those, Aries and Sagittarius, they're air signs.
Yeah.
Known for their adventurous spirit, their ability to kind of fan the flames of Leo's enthusiasm.
That's a great way to put it. With Aries, it's all about that shared intensity and a love for adventure.
Yeah.
The podcast actually called it a match made in celestial fireworks.
Oh, wow.
Which sounds both thrilling and potentially explosive.
I can only imagine. They both have that go big or go home energy, right? But is it all just fun and games? Are there any challenges to this pairing?
Of course, remember both Aries and Leo are ruled by the element of fire, which means they both have a strong will.
Okay.
And a tendency to be, shall we say, a little bit bossy.
So you've got two fire signs,
Yeah.
each used to being the center of attention.
Right.
That sounds like there could be some power struggles.
Exactly. The podcast used this funny metaphor.
Okay.
It said that an Aries-Leo relationship is like having two suns in the same solar system.
Uh-huh. I love that.
There's bound to be some cosmic chaos.
No, a key to making it work is learning to share the spotlight.
Exactly. They need to find a way to celebrate each other's strengths without letting your egos get in the way.
Right.
If they can do that, it can be incredibly passionate and fulfilling.
Okay, next up on the ideal partners list. Sagittarius.
Okay.
The podcast described this as the fun couple, which honestly sounds pretty appealing.
It does.
Why are these two considered such a good match?
Well, Sagittarius brings a sense of adventure and lightheartedness that really complements Leo's intensity perfectly.
Yeah.
They're both fire signs, so there's that natural spark.
Right.
But Sagittarius also has this unique ability to challenge Leo without bruising their ego.
I'm curious about that. How do they manage to do that?
Okay.
Because we know Leos can be a bit sensitive to criticism.
Right, but Sagittarius has this amazing blend of directness and playfulness.
Okay.
They're not afraid to speak their mind,
Yeah.
but they do it in a way that's just so charming and non-confrontational. They know how to tease a Leo without making them feel attacked.
So it's like a playful banter, a battle of wits that actually strengthens their bond.
Exactly. And Leos secretly love that.
Okay.
It shows that their partner is confident enough to kind of spar with them verbally.
Right.
Which is a sign of respect in their eyes.
But the podcast also mentioned a potential challenge.
Oh.
Sagittarius' love of independence.
Yeah.
Versus Leo's need for attention. Right. How do they navigate that?
That's the key question.
Yeah.
It all comes down to communication and finding that balance, right?
Right.
Sagittarius needs to make Leo feel loved and appreciated without feeling like their freedom is being restricted.
Yeah.
While Leo needs to give Sagittarius space to breathe without feeling neglected or unimportant.
So it's a delicate dance?
It is.
But when it works, it sounds like a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Think of them as the ultimate adventure buddies, always up for exploring new horizons, both geographically and emotionally.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to a slightly less obvious pairing.
Okay.
Gemini.
Right.
The podcast highlighted the mental spark and charisma between these few signs. But Gemini's an air sign, not fire.
Right.
So where's the connection?
It's all about that mental stimulation.
Okay.
Both Gemini and Leo are incredibly engaging, stimulating conversationalists. They love to banter. They love to exchange ideas, explore new perspectives. They never run out of things to talk about.
So it's like a meeting of the minds, a relationship fueled by witty repartee and intellectual curiosity.
Exactly. And that can be really exciting for both signs, but the podcast did raise a valid question.
Oh.
Can Gemini handle the depth of Leo's emotions?
Because Geminis are known for being a bit more cerebral.
Yes.
Less emotionally expressive.
Right. Leos wear their hearts on their sleeves.
Yeah.
While Geminis tend to approach matters of the heart with a little bit more detachment.
Okay.
So it's a question of whether Gemini can provide that emotional reassurance, that stability that Leo craves.
And whether Leo can respect Gemini's need for space and intellectual freedom without feeling like they're not a priority.
Exactly. It's all about finding that delicate balance between emotional connection and mental stimulation.
Right. Okay. Last but certainly not least on the ideal partners list, Libra.
Yeah.
Podcast called this the glamour couple, which makes total sense.
Oh, it does.
They both have that air of sophistication and elegance.
Yeah, it's a match made in Venus, Libra is ruled by Venus. The planet of love, beauty, and harmony. So aesthetically, they're a perfect match.
Cool.
They both appreciate the finer things in life, love to be surrounded by beauty.
And Libra knows how to give Leo the admiration they crave.
Yes. Libras are naturally charming and diplomatic.
Yeah.
They excel at making people feel special and appreciated.
Right.
Which is exactly what a Leo needs to thrive.
It sounds like they bring out the best in each other.
On the surface, they do.
Okay.
But the podcast warned about a potential clash. Libra's aversion to conflict versus Leo's tendency to be, well, let's just say, very direct.
Okay, so you've got peace-loving Libra who avoids confrontation at all costs.
Right.
And then fiery Leo who roars when they're upset.
Yeah.
That sounds like it could be disastrous.
It can be if they don't learn to communicate effectively.
Yeah.
The key to success for this pairing is finding a way to express their needs without triggering each other's sensitivities.
So Libra needs to learn to speak up, and Leo needs to learn to tone it down.
It's about finding a compromise between honesty and tact.
Right.
And if they can do that, it can be incredibly harmonious and fulfilling.
We've talked about love matches. We've talked about potential cosmic chaos.
Yeah.
But what about those signs that are most likely to clash with Leo's, fiery nature?
Well, let's just say that there are some signs that might make a Leo want to roar a little louder than usual.
Oh, really? Like who?
We'll take Taurus, for instance.
Oh.
On paper, they actually have a lot in common.
Okay.
Both Taurus and Leo are fixed signs, right?
Right. Fixed signs being those signs that are known for stability, loyalty, and their healthy dose of stubbornness.
Exactly. So you would think they would get along really well.
Yeah, so what's the problem?
But according to our source, the problem is they both, Taurus and Leo, have really strong wills. And they're both used to getting their own way.
Okay.
The podcast actually used the phrase unyielding turkadad.
What does that mean?
Which means stubbornness, basically. But with an extra emphasis on the unyielding part.
Oh, okay. So it's like Clash of the Titans.
Exactly.
Two immovable objects meeting head on.
Yeah. And then you throw in Leo's need for attention and Taurus's possessiveness.
Right.
You've got a recipe for some serious power struggles.
Just like they both want to be the sun in the same sky.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And neither one is willing to be eclipsed.
So while they both value things like loyalty and stability, that shared stubbornness and the need for control can cause problems.
Exactly.
So what about water signs?
Mm-hmm.
Are they a better match for Leo's fire?
Not necessarily. The podcast specifically highlighted Cancer as a really tricky pairing for Leo.
I can see how that could be kind of difficult.
Yeah.
Cancers are so emotional, sensitive,
Yeah.
and Leos are so much more expressive.
That's putting it mildly.
Yeah.
The podcast really emphasized that Leo's francheza,
Francheza, what's that?
which means their tendency to be really blunt and straightforward, can be so hurtful to Cancer's delicate little sensibilities.
Like they're speaking totally different emotional languages.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What a Leo might see is honest communication.
Yeah.
A Cancer might perceive as a personal attack.
Right. And on the flip side, Cancer's need for reassurance and that emotional closeness, that can feel suffocating to a Leo.
Right, who needs their independence, their freedom to shine.
It's just that push and pull.
Yeah.
One wants to nurture and be nurtured.
Right.
The other one wants to roam free and conquer the world.
Exactly. They just have such different ways of expressing and receiving love.
Okay, this next one I'm really curious about. The podcast called this pairing magnetic and dangerous.
Oh, which one?
Leo and Scorpio.
Oh, yeah.
Why dangerous?
Because both Leo and Scorpio are so intense and passionate.
Right.
They operate on this deep emotional level. They crave intimacy.
Yeah.
But they also have this strong sense of self-preservation.
Okay.
And can be quite, possessive.
So it's like a double-edged sword. The qualities that attract them to each other
Yes.
are also the same ones that can lead to conflict.
Exactly. It's that classic tale of two, powerful forces colliding. Both Leo and Scorpio. They want to be in control.
Right.
And neither one will back down easily.
The podcast actually used the term battle of wills.
It's a fitting analogy.
Yeah, intense.
They're both such powerful forces.
Yeah.
And when those forces clash, it can create a lot of drama.
So it's a high-stakes gamble.
Absolutely. But like any gamble, there's a chance of winning big.
Right.
If they can learn to trust each other completely,
Yeah.
and relinquish the need for those power plays, this pairing can have deep, transformative love.
Okay, last but not least on the challenging relationships list, Capricorn.
Capricorn, okay.
Why are these two considered less than ideal? Because they both seem pretty ambitious and driven.
That's true, but their ambitions manifest in very different ways.
Okay.
Capricorn is an earth sign. Grounded, practical, focused on achieving those long-term goals through hard work and discipline.
While Leo is all about living in the moment,
Yeah.
expressing themselves, and of course being the star of the show.
Exactly. It's like they have different definitions of success.
Right.
Capricorn sees Leo's playful nature and love of luxury as, frivolous and irresponsible.
Okay.
While Leo finds Capricorn's serious demeanor and their relentless focus on work to be a bit of a buzzkill.
Like they're on different planets.
In a way, they are.
Yeah.
Their approaches to life are just so different.
Right.
Capricorn values practicality and efficiency, while Leo thrives on spontaneity and grand gestures.
Right. The podcast actually mentioned a clash between Capricorn's need for control and Leo's desire for freedom.
That's a key point of tension,
Okay.
Capricorn likes to plan everything down to the last detail,
Yeah.
while Leo prefers to go with the flow.
So you've got structured, rule-following Capricorn, and then free-spirited, flamboyant Leo.
It can be a recipe for some headbutting.
But just because these pairings are labeled challenging doesn't mean that they can't work.
Absolutely not.
Right.
It just means that both individuals need to be really aware of the potential pitfalls and be willing to put in the effort to bridge that gap.
So it really comes down to recognizing and respecting those differences.
Exactly, and understanding that a successful relationship
Yeah.
isn't about finding someone who's just like you. It's about finding someone who compliments you, challenges you, helps you grow.
And speaking of growth,
Yeah.
I want to circle back to something the podcast emphasized about Leos. Their incredible loyalty.
Oh, yes.
Not just in love, but also in friendships.
Yes. Leo loyalty is legendary. They're so protective of their friends, and they'll go above and beyond to show their love and support.
The podcast actually said having a Leo as a friend makes you feel incredibly special.
It does.
Like you're their VIP.
It's true. They have this amazing ability to make you feel seen, heard, appreciated.
Right.
They shower their friends with warmth, generosity, that infectious enthusiasm that just makes you feel like you can conquer the world.
And they're always up for an adventure.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Leos, they love to experience life to the fullest.
Yeah.
And they want to share that joy with their friends, whether it's a spontaneous road trip, a glamorous night out, or just like a heartfelt conversation over coffee.
Yeah.
They bring this sense of excitement and fun
to every interaction.
Yes.
But the podcast also acknowledged that having a Leo as a friend isn't always sunshine and roses.
Of course, no relationship is perfect.
Right.
And with Leos, that need for attention, it can sometimes be a bit much. They might demand a lot of your time and energy. And they can get hurt easily if they feel like they're not a priority.
And that tendency to take charge, that can be a little bit overwhelming for some people.
Right. Leos have very strong opinions, and they're not afraid to express them. So you need to be comfortable with their directness and willing to stand your ground when necessary.
So what's the secret to a successful friendship with a Leo?
It's all about balance, just like in romantic relationships.
Okay.
You need to appreciate their warmth, their generosity, but you also need to set clear boundaries and communicate your needs honestly.
And never underestimate the power of a good compliment.
Absolutely.
Right.
Leos, they thrive on positive reinforcement.
Okay.
So make sure you acknowledge their strengths, celebrate their accomplishments, and let them know how much you value their friendship.
All right, so we've covered Leos in love. We've covered Leos in friendships.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick peek into the professional life of a Leo.
Okay.
What are they like as colleagues, bosses,
Well, all those same core Leo traits, leadership, ambition, creativity, they manifest in really powerful ways in the workplace. They're often natural-born leaders, capable of inspiring and motivating others to achieve great things.
The podcast really highlighted their ambition and drive to succeed.
Oh, yeah. They're not content with just showing up.
Right.
They want to make their mark on the world.
They want to be recognized.
And they have the energy and the charisma to make it happen.
Yeah.
Leos are not afraid to take risks, to think outside the box, and to pursue their goals with this relentless passion.
The source material also talked about their creativity, their vision.
Yes. Leos are often blessed with this natural flair for the dramatic and a knack for seeing the big picture.
Okay.
They can come up with these innovative ideas, and they're not afraid to challenge the status quo.
But of course, the podcast also talked about some potential downsides.
Sure.
Of having a Leo as a boss.
Yeah.
Or colleague.
Right.
So what are some of the things to look out for?
Well, that need for recognition and praise can sometimes translate into being a little bit demanding and high maintenance.
I think they need to feel appreciated and valued. And if they don't get that affirmation, their motivation can really dwindle.
And that tendency to take charge, it can go too far.
It can, yeah.
Right.
Leos have strong opinions. They have this natural inclination to lead.
Yeah.
But they need to be mindful of their communication style and make sure they're not steamrolling over other people.
And of course, we know they can be a little sensitive to criticism.
Yeah, like in personal relationships, Leos in the workplace can also be a bit thin-skinned when it comes to feedback.
Right.
Especially if it's not given with tact and respect.
So how do you navigate kind of those trickier aspects of working with a Leo?
It's all about finding that balance.
Okay.
Between acknowledging their strengths and setting clear boundaries.
Okay.
Make sure you're giving them credit where credit is due.
Right.
But don't be afraid to push back if you feel like they're overstepping.
And clear, direct communication is key.
Absolutely.
Right.
Leos appreciate honesty and transparency.
Okay. So don't beat around the bush. Just tell them what you need and how you feel.
So after this deep dive into all things Leo, love, friendships, work dynamics, what's the overarching message?
It's understanding the power of that Leo fire.
Yeah.
It can be a force for good, bringing warmth and joy and inspiration to every area of their life.
Right.
But it also needs to be managed and channeled in a way that's productive and respectful of others.
So whether you're dating a Leo, befriending a Leo, or working with a Leo, it's about finding that sweet spot where their brilliance can shine without burning anyone.
Exactly. And when you find that balance, the relationship can be incredibly rewarding.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Well, I think this has been a fascinating deep dive into the heart of the lion.
I agree.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.